when we're looking for the best, sometimes there are other questions that arise. For example, can all of the expectations of travel be captured in a snapshot? Or will all the new rhythms or maybe the different smells joggle your elbow and upend your intended focus so that when you finally get back to peering through the viewfinder, well, you begin to see all sorts of things you hadn't planned on. So please welcome Juliana with That Wasn't in the Brochure. Juliana, it's yours.
There was a taxi driver holding a sign with my name on it, waiting for me in the arrivals hall when I got to Tanzania. That was a first for me. I never really thought I'd be one of those sign people. But my East Africa trip wasn't like most traveling I'd done. I'm usually a plan everything out myself kind of girl, a solo traveler on a shoestring budget, taking public transportation, or occasionally even hitchhiking. Figuring out the cheapest way is half the adventure. This time, though, I was joining a guided tour group. I'd been a little hesitant about that. Is it cheating to have a professional do the planning? Surely a tour makes for a less authentic travel experience. But I'd been advised by multiple sources that traveling through Africa alone as a woman was not a good idea. Plus, the brochure for this tour looked incredible. So why not? Another difference for this trip was my camera. No crappy little point and shooter disposables this time. I had a big, serious DSLR camera. My Africa photos were going to be epic. I climbed into that taxi, and as we pulled out onto the streets of Dar es Salaam, the driver switched on the radio. I knew you were trouble when you walked in. Was that Taylor Swift? We were listening to the Top 40 Countdown with Ryan Seacrest. I know pop culture is pretty global, but it still really surprised me to hear the exact same program presented by the exact same host that I would listen to back home, all the way out here where the surroundings were so different. I mean, back in Southern California, we have busy roads, but Dar es Salaam took things to a whole new level. Beep! A motorbike whizzed past so close, I checked to see if the mirror was still there. A truck sent a choking plume of exhaust through the window. Mixed in with the cars were bicycles and rickety-looking three-wheeled tuk-tuks, all vying for position with horns and bells and little to no regard for traffic laws. Kasha summed it up pretty well through the taxi speakers. Let's make the most of the night like we're gonna die young. We edged past colorful dollar buses. Some of them were so crowded that there were people hanging off the back and the sides. If I ever did that, I think I'd have a heart attack. Yeah, Demi Lovato. I'm glad I'm here in this taxi and not on that bus. We passed blocks and blocks of roadside stalls lit by torches, selling everything from fabric to luggage to food. I reached for my camera, but couldn't figure out what to focus on. Instead, I put it away and just let the scene wash over me, vibing with the Pitbull song. Whoa, I just want to feel this moment, the scent of fish and mangoes and turmeric wafted in through the windows, along with roasted lamb and ginger and curry. The confusion of smells was just as cacophonous as the sounds of the road. It all became one big blur of sensory overload. By the time I checked into my little beach banda where I was staying, I was very ready to crawl under my mosquito net and get some rest. I hadn't expected one taxi ride to be so intense. The next day, I met my tour mates, 2 guides from Kenya and 7 of us tourists. We loaded up the tour vehicle, but didn't get in just yet. Instead, we headed over to the port to catch a ferry to Zanzibar. Zanzibar, the semi-autonomous spice islands, with a name that sounds like something Dr. Seuss made up just to sound exotic. Most of our time there was spent in Stone Town. The brochure did not do this place justice. It was a photographer's dream. I couldn't get enough of the impossibly narrow, zigzagging streets that no car could hope to fit through. Most of the old buildings looked a little worse for wear, with peeling paint or broken shutters, but it was easy to see how grand they once had been. Regally derelict. The centuries-old wooden doors were sometimes warped or cracked, but were covered with ornate carvings and had huge spikes sticking out of them, apparently to stop elephants leaning against them, even though these days you won't find any elephants on Zanzibar. Outside the city, we took a spice tour. I'd only experienced spices from the supermarket, ground up in little bottles. It was fascinating to see the trees and bushes and vines where they grew. Did you know that black pepper and white pepper are exactly the same plant, harvested at different stages of ripeness? I had no idea. For every plant he showed us, our guide would pick a leaf and have us smell it and guess which spice it was. A pepper vine leaf smells exactly like pepper, even though the peppercorns are the berries. The same was true for cloves. Unmistakable, even though it's the flowers that are used. And cinnamon and vanilla and turmeric, any spice you care to name, the leaves smell like the spices. Reading about this in a brochure did not remotely prepare me for the actual experience. My mind was blown. It was a real wrench to leave Zanzibar and head back to mainland Tanzania. But once we got there, the excitement started to build again for the overland portion of the trip. We drove through Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, and Botswana, all the way to Johannesburg, South Africa. 3 weeks and more than 3,000 miles. We had a lot of long driving days, bouncing along down mostly deserted country highways with dust blowing in from the windows that we kept open all the time to try to mitigate some of the heat. I hadn't expected to get bored on an African adventure, but there are only so many hours that you can enjoy similar looking scenery before you pull out a book to pass the time. Until somebody spots an animal. Warthog, warthog on the right. We all grabbed our cameras and leaned out the windows to try to get a good shot. And sure enough, there was a warthog, just trotting along the side of the road, swishing its tail, hardly paying us any attention. It was so cute and funny looking, just like Pumbaa from The Lion King, except this one didn't start singing Hakuna Matata. Giraffes left! Way off in the distance, I had to zoom in as much as my camera would allow, but there were 3 of them snacking on some acacia trees. Elephants! Over a dozen of them, right in the middle of the road. I don't know what it is about elephants that's so mesmerizing. It was probably only 5 minutes, but it felt like it could have been hours that we sat there, with them staring at us and us staring at them, while the matriarch stared down our driver before they slowly ambled off. Aside from wildlife pictures, one of the only reasons to stop during the day was for bathroom breaks. There were almost never actual bathrooms for us to use. Our driver, Tony, would just stop the truck and we'd all tromp off. Girls heading one way, guys heading the other, to use the facilities. There was one day, though, where things didn't follow the usual pattern. Hey, Tony, can we have a break? Later. Actually, there are 3 of us back here who are gonna need to go pretty soon. Here is not a good place, you have to wait. Looking around, we couldn't figure out why. This stretch of road was about the same as any other we'd seen over the last couple days. What was wrong with here? Tony, how come? Tall grass. Okay. What on earth does grass have to do with anything? Tall grass, there are lions. You cannot see them coming in the tall grass. You do not want to squat here. Okay, yeah, Getting attacked by lions with my pants down would really ruin a trip. That was not in the brochure. I can hold it a bit longer. We did get to see some lions later on a safari drive. We got to see the whole cast of The Lion King. I got a great picture of a buffalo standing on a hill, silhouetted against a clear blue sky, and dozens of antelope at a watering hole, where they would come in for a drink and then dart away at the slightest hint of a ripple in the water, before slowly coming back for more. Baboons, sitting on a log in a very human-looking, just chilling kind of a pose. I only caught the lions from the back. They were more skittish and had really good camouflage. I'd have to zoom way in and point them out on the screen when comparing photos back at camp. Every night, we would stay in a luxury campground with flush toilets and hot showers. One of the best was in Zambia, right on the Zambezi River. It had a restaurant with a deck overlooking the river. You could eat breakfast with a view of hippos and watch monkeys playing in the trees above. It was like something out of a movie or a scene from a postcard. So many great photo opportunities. The thing was that those monkeys weren't always content to stay up in the trees. I was sipping my tea and drinking in my surroundings when there was a clatter of dishes and a scream behind me. Two of those monkeys I'd been admiring had dropped down onto a lady's table. One of them grabbed a muffin and started eating it, while the other stepped right onto her plate and peed in her eggs. A waiter came rushing over with a slingshot. Choo, choo. He fired pebbles at the two monkeys on the table, and then choo, choo, choo. More pebbles into the trees. The whole canopy erupted in shrieks as hundreds of monkeys scrambled up into higher branches or away into neighboring trees. Waiters shooting at monkeys with slingshots had definitely not been in the brochure. But it was the highlight of my morning. My absolute favorite campground, though, was in Botswana. It was called Elephant Sands and was very aptly named. The picnic area overlooked a watering hole, and every day, elephants would come to drink. A group of 3 came down while I was sitting at the table writing postcards. 2 adults and 1 baby. I don't know what it is about baby elephants that's so enchanting, but somehow a very small version of a very big animal is even more impressive. I dished those postcards immediately and started taking pictures. The sight was majestic, but I'd expected seeing elephants up close to be pretty darn awesome. What really struck me were the sounds. The water sprayed into their mouths from their trunks like a fountain, with just a bit splashing back into the water below. I could hear the squelching of the mud as the little one paced back and forth at the water's edge, and the surprisingly loud gurgling of their digestive systems. A couple times, the mother let out a deep, low rumbling that was more of a feeling than a sound, like the intense bass on a subwoofer vibrating my bones. Incredible, beautiful, powerful, and a little intimidating. They'd come and go down the same path leading away from camp, but there was nothing to stop these enormous creatures from coming straight in and trampling all our tents if they felt like it. Thankfully, at least for the duration of my stay, they were content to keep their distance and watch us much like we were watching them. With 3 days left of the trip, disaster struck. My camera was missing. My new DSLR. I searched everywhere. I mobilized the rest of my group to help look too, but no luck. It seemed that it had been stolen. No. Even worse than the camera itself was losing all of those photos. I had so many pictures of busy city markets and lonely country roads, of giraffes, antelope, hippos, lions, elephants, and those cheeky breakfast ruining monkeys. It was hard to be as enthusiastic for the last couple days. The trip was coming to an end, and as we crossed the border into South Africa, the scenery became more and more built up. Suburbs, shopping malls, fast food chains. We were emerging back into a world much more like what I was used to, and all of those incredible sights and experiences were quickly becoming a memory. An amazing memory that no brochure or photograph could ever hope to capture the fullness of. The true epicness of this adventure of a lifetime was in the smells of fruits and spices, the sounds of chaotic city streets, and monkeys shrieking in the trees. I realized it didn't really matter if I didn't have those photos. A couple weeks after I got home, though, I got a very surprising email. The tour company found my camera. It hadn't been stolen. It had somehow fallen behind the bus refrigerator, and when they pulled it out to deep clean, there it was. They were able to ship it back to me. I've got to be one of the luckiest people on the planet. I might not need those photos, but it sure is a great bonus to have them. When I look at my favorite photo from Botswana, I can almost feel the rumbling of that mother elephant, still vibrating my bones.